turning off the lights at the bottom of the basement and having to run up the stairs in pitch black.
When I was like 5, my grandma told me I couldn't play in the basement because there are demons down there. Thanks, Grandma.
Eyeballs. I would have nightmares, while I was awake too, of hundreds of floating eyeballs watching me and following me.
Knowing me would have been hilarious because I had a prosthetic eye since I was a wee kid and I'd just randomly prank my friends by throwing it at them or leaving on top of something that I hand to them.
The dark. I would run from a dark room and down the dark hallway into the safety of the light in the living room. It's like the manifestation of the instinctual fear of getting kidnapped or a ghost or demon dragging you into the closet and smothering you with a black trash bag. Your imagination is stronger as a kid.
Was the opposite for me. I couldn't sleep unless every bit of light was closed in my room. The curtains had to be smushed closed, the light in the hall had to be off. Basically, if I could still see and if there was anything that could make shadows, I'd be creeped out. But total darkness felt comfortable to me, like a blanket. When there's nothing I can see, there's nothing to mess with my head and freak my imagination.
Getting kidnapped. My parents let me watch Ransom when I was 8, and I was completely convinced that I was going to get kidnapped like in the movie for probably an entire year after watching it.
I have been kidnapped. It is not as scary as you thought it was when you were a kid. It is so much scarier. I was beyond messed up for months. I still have nightmares about it to this day.
I had a really vivid nightmare from when I believe I was around 3 years old that I got up to pee in the middle of the night during a thunderstorm, and when the lightning flashed I could see our next door neighbor's face pressed against the glass, panting and angry. I woke up immediately terrified. It's one of my clearest and earliest memories. I never got up in the middle of the night for anything after that as a child. Even now I find myself never needing to get up or just more hesitant when half asleep. There was a shadow man I would see in my hallway every night. He was taller than the door frame but I could see no feet, wore a detective's head trench coat and would just stand there. Sometimes he would dip his head and stand inside my room, but most times just in the hallway. I called him the Green Man because his was so dark green he was black. My brother would see him too. Scared the shit out of me well into my preteens.
I saw the Shadow Man too as a kid. Then again as adult in a dream. He was going after a kid I knew and I was protecting them from him. He turned all ghost-like and ran right through me and left me paralyzed until I could wake up from the dream. I burst into tears and couldn't sleep the rest of the night. The most scary moment in my life. Creepy as hell, man. He plagues children, not sure why.
Lol, I really don't think it was a sleep paralysis demon since my brother also saw him. He was definitely a shadow person. Several other paranormal things happened in that house until my family moved out when I was in college. We later found out that the original owner's son had committed suicide in my bedroom, so it's a chance it's related. Spooky shit, but I never saw him after I was like 12. That's when other paranormal things started happening around the house, like objects moving, faucets turning on by themselves, feelings of being watched, etc.
Earthquakes. I grew up in the Los Angeles area, so we did earthquake drills every few months in school. What terrified me the most was that it's pretty much the only natural disaster that has virtually no warning or way to predict when it occurs. I believe now cities in Japan have a public warning system, but even that affords you only a few seconds to get under a desk. It scared me to think about how at any instance everything could just start shaking.
There was this pencil drawing of a scary-looking guy chomping a cigar at the end of the hall by the bathroom, and for some reason I was terrified of it. I would run away from the bathroom every time, and I even had nightmares about it. It's hilarious to think about now, but it was pretty horrible then.
Caught dad engaged in carnal activities with his new girlfriend in the doggy-style position. I thought he was whipping her because she was bad. Turns out, he just hated me and whipped me because of it.
A specific dream I had when I was around 5 or 6. It stayed with me for years up until I became a teenager. I can't remember how it began, only how it ended. I was in a small courtyard area next to a 2-story house. It was nighttime. I remember looking up at the back door, which opened onto a balcony with stairs that descended down the side of the house onto the courtyard where I was stood. There was this really creepy feeling. I had never seen this place before in my life, yet it somehow felt familiar. I'm looking at the back door when this figure bursts out. It looked kind of like a scarecrow, scraggly and flailing about, nothing too scary. The figure then just runs down the staircase. It wasn't looking at me or even acknowledged me, but I knew it was coming for me. Something about the figure just made me paralyzed with fear. When it reached the bottom of the stairs, I remember I began waking up. The dream itself wasn't inherently terrifying, but for some reason it stuck with me for years. Even thinking about it now is giving me goosebumps. I think when I was a kid, I fully believed some kind of entity had entered my dream space and was haunting me or something.
Used to have a paranoia when I ever was in an isolated or rural area that a sinkhole would open up right beneath my feet, just big and wide enough to swallow my head beneath the ground but narrow enough that I couldn't move at all, so I'd be stuck completely immobile in a random place where no one could hear or see me.
Oh. I almost drowned when I was 11. I was at a dam that had an area that had smooth rocks and rushing water, and a friend's dad had brought us there, despite many unsafe conditions for swimming signs. It turned out, my friend and I decided the algae-covered rocks were like a natural water slide. My friend went first and popped up at the bottom waving me on, my dumb city kid ass with her swimming lesson badges under her belt and many weekends at the neighborhood pool, though how bad could it be? And launched myself in. I went right into a strong undercurrent and couldn't get myself out of it. The water at the bottom of the falls was really deep. I remember reaching a point of acceptance that I was going to drown there when I got spat out into more shallow water and I was able to get out. A few weeks later, I remember seeing on the news about how someone drowned in that same area. Every few years more stories emerge of unlucky swimmers like this one. And I didn't really sleep much the rest of the summer. Even now I'm really not big on swimming in natural bodies of water.
Dogs. To this day I still get anxious around them. At about 8 years old I was riding my skateboard down the sidewalk in my small town, less than 300 people, when a Rottweiler lunged at me from a random yard and bit my leg. I had teeth marks, major bruising, and now am left with scars on my leg. I will never be able to trust them again. I was minding my own business listening to my little Walkman CD player, riding my skateboard not doing anything, and boom. Trust destroyed forever.
Groups of handicapped people. My sister is 2 years older than me and she would publicly freak out when she'd see them. Apparently one grabbed her by the arm at the mall when she was younger. So all I ever saw as a kid was my sister freaking out, and I would do the same. Especially if they were physically deformed. It didn't help that an older cousin worked with them and had stories of their crazy strength. The one that always stood out was the time one of his clients crushed his Nintendo Game Boy with one hand. I was terrified of them.
Almost choked to death when I was only 10 years old. My parents had to force me to eat for like a week. If touches my neck, I'll have a fight reaction, slap my brother in the face instinctively when he decided it would be funny to grab the neck of somebody with pseudodysphagia, or B, I'll have a panic attack and be unable to move for like 20 minutes. I can't even touch my own neck, or I'll find moving extremely difficult. This still scares the shit out of me, so not completely relevant, but oh, well.
My own room. I would wake up in the middle of the night to see it twisting and distorting wildly, almost trying to consume me as it bent and tore in non-Euclidean ways that overloaded my 7-year-old mind and seeded terror into my soul that I have to this day. They don't know what caused it, but they speculate it was a combination of night terrors and a variant of Alice in Wonderland syndrome.
I remember the first time I flew on a plane when I was like 4 years old. I was under the impression that we would be in danger of being shot down like in a dogfight. I literally thought that World War I style airplane battles were happening at 40,000 feet above our heads every day.